And it was night. John 13:30. It's true almost for us now, isn't it? But it's certainly true for Jesus. Because darkness gathers in the room where he was having his final supper with his disciples to celebrate the Passover, and where he was washing the disciples' feet. We had read, Dawn shared with us that Satan had designs on Judas, prompting him to betray Jesus. And the disciples, they're clueless. They can't see. They can't see what's going on, but Jesus can see. What you're about to do it quickly, Jesus says. And as Judas leaves, Satan enters him. That's real darkness, isn't it? And it's only the beginning of the night. Satan's temptation of Judas is just like what he did to Adam and Eve, which is another echo of Eden. I think I said that word a number of times, those words a number of times on Sunday. They're everywhere in John's gospel. I was sharing how on Sunday that John writes his gospel account almost like a second Genesis. He's reporting that the events of Jesus mark a new world, a new creation, God's kingdom breaking in and bursting forth in this world. Signs of it are everywhere, in his healings, in his miracles, which profoundly rearrange the order of the world. Water turns into wine. That's not normal, is it? And he heals people. He raises people from the dead. But for our world and our lives to be truly set on a trajectory towards God's kingdom, in us and around us, a new Eden, Jesus has to go back to the garden. Jesus has to go back, as it were, right to the very beginning. He has to wind the clock back, and he has to replay some of the tragic events of the fall that we see in Genesis. And he has to overcome them where we have failed, where Adam failed, where we have all failed. He has to replay them, reverse them, and overcome the darkness. And we're going to witness that over these next few days as he heads deeper and deeper into the darkness, going right back to the beginning. Here on Maundy Thursday, on Good Friday, and Easter Sunday, as Jesus is surrounded by the growing darkness in the Garden of Gethsemane, which is what we're going to look at in a moment. He's dead and buried in the Garden of Golgotha, and he's miraculously alive in a garden of glory. That's what we're looking at. We've looked at John chapter 13. We're now going to fast forward to John chapter 18, where Jesus is in the Garden of Gethsemane. But it's not actually named the Garden of Gethsemane. I don't know if you noticed that, which is quite interesting because the other gospel accounts certainly name that's where Jesus is, and that's where he is. He is there in the Garden of Gethsemane. What John calls it was that he's in a garden in the Kidron Valley. That's interesting because the word Kidron means dark. John's doing this intentionally. He's chosen not to name it Gethsemane at this point. He's emphasizing Jesus finds himself with his disciples in a dark garden. Remember what I just said. Jesus is winding the clock back. He's going back to the garden, back to where it all went wrong. And he's going to undo it. He's going to reverse the curse. He's going to launch God's new world. And we see the undoing of the curse, and there might be an image that comes up. Hopefully you can make it out. With the arrival of a detachment of Roman soldiers, and then the Jewish officials and the Pharisees, they bring their own officers too. And these forces come to Jesus carrying torches and lanterns and weapons. And if we're reading John's Gospels and we've got our Eden glasses on and we can see the patterns and the echoes everywhere, we realize that this is an echo back to the beginning. Because it recalls the moment where Adam and Eve are sent out of Eden, exiled out of Eden, east of Eden, and cherubim are posted at the threshold of Eden with flaming swords, barring the way for Adam and Eve to return and seize the tree of life and have eternal life. But the guards that Jesus meet aren't the Lord's army. They're not angels. They're a distortion. They're another manifestation, like with Judas, of Satan's attempt to defeat Jesus. And then this violent host, they come to the disciples and they're trying to find and locate in the darkness, where is Jesus? And Jesus emerges from the crowd, from the disciples, and says, I am he. And an amazing thing happens. I want you to try and do the maths of how many people actually approach Jesus. And I think I've talked about this before. A detachment is 600 soldiers. But that's not all that's there, because the Pharisees and the Jewish officials also bring officers as well. So it's possible 700 soldiers descend on Jesus. That's real darkness, isn't it? And they're not just coming to talk to him. They've got swords and lanterns. They're ready to fight. But as Jesus says, I am he, or simply I am, they're the very words that God used at the burning bush. They draw back and they fall to the ground. They're sprawling on the floor, 700 people. I am. Bam! Jesus' victory over the darkness is right there, with them all on the floor. And even more so as he's standing over them saying, so who is it that you want? They say, Jesus. And Jesus says, if you want me, then let these men go. He's talking about his disciples. And that response is actually a reverse of Adam's failure. Remember, Adam, in falling to the temptation of Satan, said, he blamed Eve. The woman gave it to me. She gave me the fruit. Adam blamed Eve. Jesus protects his disciples. Let these men go. There's a difference, right? Whereas Adam hides in the garden for fear and shame, Jesus puts himself in harm's way in front of all these hundreds of soldiers. And whereas Adam has provided a helper, Jesus soon is going to be abandoned. He's winding the clock back. He's replaying what we've read before, what we repeat and what we do throughout human history, and he's overcoming it. He's changing it. We're going to see in these stories, especially, we're going to see tomorrow, we're going to explore a number of different things, how Jesus is going back. There's so many different ways that Jesus is responding to things in our past, right from the beginning, and turning it around. And this victory here that we see in the garden, it's what John actually was talking about right from the beginning in his gospel, which is this. In Jesus was life, and that life was the light of humankind. The light shines in the darkness, but the darkness cannot overcome it. That's what we see in the Garden of Gethsemane. The darkness cannot overcome Jesus. This is so beautiful. It's such a reminder that Jesus is the one who can help us in our present troubles, in the darkness that we face right now, and that we may have come to this Easter week with a real sense of there's this looming shadow over us. It may be our fears or anxieties or our circumstances, and we think there is no escape. I'm surrounded on all sides. It's like 600 soldiers are surrounding me. There's no hope. But in this story, what John has just retold, in this dark garden, Jesus is surrounded by a vast crowd, a hostile crowd. But all it takes is his word to send the darkness flying. That's all it takes for him to speak into our lives. He can speak into our darkness and overpower our present troubles. And so that's what I want us to receive today. to receive this evening, to receive this night, to experience the light of his presence. So what is going to happen is this. Paul is going to light a candle, and he's going to pass one to the end of the row, and then you're going to pass on the light. And then in a moment, what I want to do is proclaim that word that John almost starts his gospel with. The light shines in the darkness cannot overcome it. And I want to proclaim freedom and hope and comfort and release and joy, light in the darkness. So let's receive that now. Let's be reminded of Jesus' presence in our present.